We love this country, but we don't love what it has become.
Doris Davis and her wife, Susie Bartlett, are eyeing a move to Europe. Their reason?
I am officially running.
U.S. President Donald Trump. The New York City couple say they were willing to give Trump a chance during his first term, but they had watched in alarm as he returned to the White House and ended a range of policies aimed at promoting racial equity and rights for LGBTQ plus people.
There are only two genders.
When your identity is being attacked, there is a personal sense of just, anger, frustration. If he had won by one electoral vote, we were still leaving, because the end result is that he would be president. But the magnitude of it just really underscored how pervasive his thinking had permeated society here in the States.
They are now working with an immigration lawyer to assess options in Europe. Davis and Bartlett are part of an increased number of Americans considering relocating, though the overall figures of those leaving remain quite small. That's according to government visa and citizenship data and Reuters interviews with 8 relocation firms. U.S. applications for Irish passports were at their highest level in a decade in the first 2 months of this year, up around 60% from the year before. And applications for UK passports in the last 3 months of 2024 were a record of any quarter in the past 2 decades. While one Italian immigration advisor told Reuters that some Americans, mainly Republicans, eyed a move after Joe Biden's 2020 win, most firms said there's been a larger spike in interest since Trump returned to the White House. But there are right-wing populist parties making political gains in Europe. In Italy, the conservative government portrays itself as a guardian of traditional values. And in Germany, the AfD came second in a recent election, the best performance by a far-right party since World War II.
We've seen right-wing factions start to rear their head in other countries.
Krishan Wright is the founder of Blaxit, an organization that helps Black Americans move abroad. The New York native, who moved to Portugal in 2023, says traffic to her site jumped over 50% after the election. Wright says some Americans are still willing to make the move, despite the political situation in some European countries.
Generally speaking, I think Americans still are flocking to European countries and Portugal in particular. While there is a growing right-wing movement across many countries, that is troublesome. Nobody has a crystal ball in terms of how this is going to play out.
But many hurdles exist for those looking to move. Relocation platform Relocate.me said difficulties in securing jobs abroad, restrictions on remote work, lower salaries in Europe, and the U.S. tax system are among the obstacles. And some Europeans, already struggling to cope with mass tourism and a housing crisis, have turned against the arrival of more Americans.
Well, to help us get a sense of the significance of these elections, I have with me in the studio Leila Jacinto, our International Affairs Editor. Good to see you, Leila. So what are the stakes in this election then?
They couldn't be higher. I mean, just a year ago, nobody paid any attention to Romanian elections apart from Romania and East European experts. That changed, as you said, last year in November when Calin Georgescu leapt from obscurity to win the first round in November. And this election results, as you said, was annulled by Romania's constitutional court due to allegations of irregularity and Russian interference. And so, which is why we are having this rerun today, which the Constitutional Court ordered. Now we have a far-right candidate, George Simonoi, as you mentioned, who is leading. He's the front-runner in the polls. But what we are seeing is rather unprecedented, because for the first time in the US, when Donald Trump won the election, in January, we saw these unprecedented scenes of Trump appointees basically accusing Romania of undermining its democratic values. And, this unlikely scenes of the White House accusing a NATO ally member of not being democratic and stealing the election. So, the stakes are so high because, Romania is a major NATO member, and all this comes at a time when the war in Ukraine is raging. We are seeing Trump appointees such as Vice President J.D. Vance and Elon Musk talk about stolen elections. Now, this is the same rhetoric that Trump supporters and the MAGA people in the U.S. have talked about. This is the sort of populist theme that talks about the will of the people being deprived. So there is suddenly Romania is now seeing itself as sort of caught between the Kremlin, because Putin and the Kremlin have denied interference in the November election. And Trump is also smarts from allegations of Russian interference in his first when he ran for president in 2016. So there's this strange confluence where in the old days Romania was seen as pro-Western, pro-EU, and now this populism is riding high in Romania. Of course, we have to see this is the first round of the vote, but the stakes are really high, especially because Romania is extremely important as a NATO member.
Speaking of, how important is Romania for NATO?
It cannot be overstated. You just have to look at a map of Romania to understand its geostrategic importance. Romania shares a border with Ukraine. It stares across the Black Sea into Russian-occupied Crimea, wherein Sevastopol is the home of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. Romania has some major NATO bases. In the south, it's got the Develesu Air Base, which is home to U.S. Missile defense systems. And it's got another air base that is coming up that's going to be upgraded. This is called the MK base, right on its eastern flank near the Black Sea port. And this base is going to get an upgrade. So by 2030, it's supposed to play a major role. Romania is putting $2.7 billion into this upgrade, which is critical to protect NATO's eastern flank. And under the Romanian system, the president, it's pretty much like the French system. They have a parliament and a prime minister, but it's the Romanian president that looks after foreign policy and defense. And if there is a president that is seen as Eurosceptic and not committed to NATO and not committed to the war in Ukraine, just at the time when the US is pulling back on its support, this does not harbor well for Ukraine's and for Europe's war against the Russian occupation in Ukraine.
Leela, thank you very much.
Brazilian police say they thwarted a bomb attack planned for Lady Gaga's historic concerts that drew over 2 million people to the Copacabana beach in Rio de Janeiro on Saturday. The civil police of Rio de Janeiro state said the plot was orchestrated by a group promoting hate speech and the radicalization of teenagers, including self-harm and violent content as a form of social belonging. Now, according to the Rio City Hall, 2.1 million people attended the concert of the American pop icon. The Justice Ministry said the recruiters identified themselves as members of Gaga's global fan base known as the Little Monsters. A man described as the group's leader was arrested in the southern state of Rio Grande do Sul for illegal possession of a firearm, while a teenager in Rio de Janeiro was detained for storing child pornography.
Porque eles estavam ali claramente falando que iriam fazer um atentado ao show da cantora Lady Gaga, de cunho de orientação sexual, ou seja, para atingir o público LGBTQIA+, e também o alvo de Macaé num cunho religioso, porque ele dizia que essa cantora era satanista e ele iria fazer um ritual satanista também, matando uma criança durante o show.
Havia algum tipo de sinalização de que esses grupos que são organizados, eles têm metas para alcançar notoriedade, para arregimentar mais espectadores, mais participantes?
Pakistan is speculating military strike by India amid soaring tensions between nuclear-armed neighbors. Pakistan has once again issued a nuclear threat to India, saying Islamabad will use the full spectrum of power if India strikes. Our next story explains how India is one of 4 nations in the world to have a nuclear triad.
This is the doomsday scenario. In a strategic miscalculation, Pakistan's military command issues an order that no nation should consider. Pakistan activates its nuclear weapons. Within moments, missiles are screaming across the skies. The incoming missiles face India's advanced anti-missile defense systems, a mix of both homegrown and foreign origin systems. First up, they encounter the Prithvi air defense that intercepts ballistic missiles outside the Earth's atmosphere. Next comes the indigenous missile advanced air defense that intercepts and destroys targets in the lower atmospheric layer. This is followed by the Akash missile system that hits aerial targets up to 30 kilometers. And finally, India has the Russian S-400 that can take on a wide range of aerial threats, including ballistic and cruise missiles. Years of meticulous intelligence gathering and advanced satellite surveillance have stripped Pakistan's nuclear infrastructure of any element of secrecy. India's war plans have precisely factored in each silo, mobile launcher and weapons storage facility. Strategically positioned, Pakistan's nuclear missiles are hidden in fortified garrisons and underground facilities. Pakistan's land-based missile silos are located at the Akro garrison, the Gujranwala garrison, the Khuzdar garrison, the Pano Akil garrison and the Sargodha garrison. Pakistan has placed its nuclear-capable bombers at the Minhas Air Base, the Shehbaz Air Base, the Rafiki Air Base and the Masroor Air Base. India is one of only 4 nations with a fully operational nuclear triad, land, air and sea-based nuclear delivery systems. Which means that even if Pakistan uses nuclear weapons first, India's second strike capability, especially its stealth Arihant-class submarines, will guarantee a punishing response, nullifying any nuclear blackmail.
Pakistan, we have seen over the years that if you compare the Pakistan Army and the Indian Army, and if you compare their conventional strength, you will find that the Indian Army is twice as strong as the Pakistan Army, whether in terms of air power, land power, or naval power. So the country which can't match you conventionally has to resort to this nuclear rhetoric. And that is what we are seeing from Pakistan.
History is witness to Pakistan's futile attempt to alter the status quo in 1999 during the Kargil conflict. Its covert incursions were met with a blistering Indian counter-offensive. Leveraging air power and high-altitude warfare, India's military not only recaptured lost ground, but called Pakistan's bluff of having nuclear weapons. Former Indian Defence Minister George Fernandes once put it bluntly, "There will be no Pakistan left when we have responded." He wasn't bluffing. The former Defence Minister was underscoring a truth that still holds. India's second strike capability is devastating, assured and precise. Pakistan may speak of full-spectrum deterrence, but India's response is spectrum-shattering. The first strike is no protection for Islamabad. It will only seal its fate. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
Pay my wages! Workers at Shengdi Optoelectronics in Wuzhen, Tongxiang City, Zhejiang Province are shouting in unison.
On strike, on strike. Suining Shangda Electronics is on strike, see?
The social crisis in China is worsening, with protests erupting across the country. Millions of Peng Lifa are rising up.
Things are getting out of hand in China. Protests are growing at an exponential rate. Right now, people are protesting about losing their jobs and not getting paid for work they have already done. But the way CCP is responding to these protests, it's not gonna turn out good. They're deleting posts, suppressing comments, and worse yet, they're kidnapping people from the street, as you can see from your screen. Pretty soon, these protests will go from being about the economy to being about the CCP. Chinese citizens will realize that they are struggling because of decisions of one person, Xi Jinping. 3 years ago, they were chanting against him, and now they may march against him. Because of US tariffs, Chinese factories are falling like dominoes. Factory owners are going bankrupt, so they're screwing over the workers. They're not paying the workers for the job they have already done. And that's exactly why so many protests are happening all across China. Here we have one factory owner sharing how all his orders got cancelled overnight. And because of that, he was forced to shut it down.
看来美国加关税对这个生意影响还是挺大的。
Looks like the US tariffs are really hurting this business. The guy behind me runs a cardboard box business. You might not notice the impact in other industries, but packaging materials like cardboard really feel it. He just told me he's not busy at all now, so he's hanging out at a friend's factory drinking tea for half a day because there's nothing to do. Many of his clients have canceled their orders. Let's hear what he has to say. Seems like you're really feeling the impact here.
Yeah, it's had a huge effect.
Are most of your clients in the lighting business?
Yeah, that's right. Most of them are in lighting, a big majority.
So the lighting industry gets hit hard when they deal with the US market.
Exactly. I would say around 80% are affected.
If you only look at the companies making finished products, you might not notice the impact as much. But for you, you're making materials, cardboard boxes and foam, so it really shows.
Right, exactly.
And those old orders, some of them were just cancelled?
Most of the older orders were cancelled. And for the ones we already made, most clients told us not to deliver them.
They won't even accept the delivery? That shows how thin the profits must be in the lighting business.
Sudanese paramilitaries struck Port Sudan in the first attack on the seat of the army-aligned government in the country's two-year war. The paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, at war with the regular army since April 2023, have increased their use of drones since losing territory, including March the capital Khartoum in March. Images showed smoke billowing from the area of the airport in Port Sudan, about 650 kilometers from the nearest town. RSF positions on the outskirts of Khartoum. In a separate development, airstrikes in the Fangak County of South Sudan have killed at least 7 people and injured 20 others. The last remaining hospital in the region was destroyed when a bomb was dropped in the adjoining MSF pharmacy. A drone strike that followed killed 7 people in the town. Eyewitness footage shows locals desperately trying to douse the flames at the scene. Meanwhile, in West Kordofan, over 300 people were killed in attacks by the paramilitary RSF. The Sudanese Foreign Ministry has accused the RSF of committing crimes against humanity, claiming the attacks were ethnically targeted. The attacks took place over Thursday and Friday in the city of Al-Nuhud, where the RSF also claimed to have seized the Army's 18th Infantry Division headquarters. The Doctors Syndicate says 15 women and 21 children are among those dead. The Sudan conflict that began in April 2023 has already claimed tens of thousands of lives and displaced over 15 million people. The country's healthcare system has collapsed. United Nations agencies are warning that Sudan is on the brink of famine, while exact casualty numbers remain unclear. War monitors estimate the death toll could range from 30,000 to 150,000 in a conflict that has gripped the country.
Obviously, we're being challenged. The whole world is being challenged by the Houthis, including in the dastardly attack they did today near Ben Gurion Airport. We will not tolerate it. We will take very strong action against them. And we always remember that they act with their patron Iran's direction and support. We will do what we need to do to take care of our security, to respond effectively, and to give Iran a due warning that this cannot continue.
فشل المنظومات الاعتراضية الأمريكية والإسرائيلية في اعتراضه، هروب أكثر من 3 ملايين صهيوني إلى الملاجئ، توقف حركة المطار بشكل كامل ولأكثر من ساعة، وبهذا تجدد القوات المسلحة اليمنية تحذيرها لكافة شركات الطيران العالمية من مواصلة رحلاتها إلى مطار بن غوريون كونه أصبح غير آمن لحركة الملاحة. انتصارا لمظلومية الشعب الفلسطيني ومجاهديه ورفضا لجريمة الإبادة الجماعية التي ينفذها العدو الصهيوني بحق إخواننا في قطاع غزة، نفذت القوة الصاروخية في القوات المسلحة اليمنية عملية عسكرية نوعية استهدفت مطار بن غوريون في منطقة يافا المحتلة، وذلك بصاروخ باليستي فرط صوتي، وقد أصاب هدفه بنجاح بفضل الله. فشل المنظومات الاعتراضية الأمريكية والإسرائيلية في اعتراضه، هروب أكثر من 3 ملايين صهيوني إلى الملاجئ، توقف حركة المطار بشكل كامل ولأكثر من ساعة. وبهذا تجدد القوات المسلحة اليمنية تحذيرها لكافة شركات الطيران العالمية من مواصلة رحلاتها إلى مطار بن غوريون، كونه أصبح غير آمن لحركة الملاحة.
Some examples. These are actual examples. So you're saying the prices that are going down, some prices are going up. Tires, strollers, some clothing in the wake of your tariffs.
Excuse me, that's peanuts compared to energy. Energy is 60% of the cost.
But sir, you
campaigned,
you campaigned on a promise to bring prices down on day
Well, I don't know. When you say strollers are going up, what kind of a thing? I'm saying that gasoline is going down. Gasoline is thousands of times more important than a stroller someplace.
But what do you say to Americans who say they voted for you because they want and they need relief right now?
And they're getting it.
Right now? What about those
even mortgage rates?
different items I just
Mortgage rates are going down despite the fact that we have a stubborn Fed.
But you said even dolls could cost a couple bucks more.
Maybe they might, but you don't need to have, as I said, $35. You can have 2, 3, 4 and save a lot of money. We don't need to feed the beast.